Welcome to Mathematics Podcast. We'll be delving deep into marketing measurement with the industry's top experts and change makers to bring you the latest insights straight out of the source. With us today is Dr. Ramla Jarrar. Ramla is the Chief Executive Officer at Mass Analytics, the marketing mix modeling software and service provider. Ramla, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If we could start by just you telling us a little bit about the services that your company offers.
So as you have mentioned earlier on, we are specializing in marketing mix modeling. And in marketing mix modeling, there are, I would say, two areas that any company that specializes in this should be focusing on. The first one is actually the technology, which means like all the software suite that is available, that is specialist, that is bespoke, and that responds to the market needs when it comes to running marketing mix modeling projects end to end. And the other part is obviously the support and consultancy that should be offered around the software and technology in order to onboard clients and in order to make their journey when it comes to embracing MMM much more pleasurable and much more efficient.
When it comes to the structure of the software and services, what do you see as the most interesting offering to your clients? Is there like an increasing interest in using in-house, like MMM softwares to in-house function within companies, or is there an increased interest in relying on MMM agencies, for example?
I think it's still a mixture of the two. However, we have seen that there is a trend with big advertisers to start thinking about creating their own team and in-house their marketing mix modeling and other analytics. I can understand that there are a certain number of factors that push these brands to do so, but actually this is a trend that we are definitely seeing when we compare, for example, 2020, 2021 to what it was happening in before that.
How can you explain that trend toward in-house? And is it just from a cost-conscious perspective, or is there any more underlying benefits to in-housing marketing mix modeling?
I think part of it is the cost, obviously, because when you in-house, in a way, you are owning the operations, you create your capability in-house. You would probably shave off that premium that the agencies will charge you, because obviously they are experts in what they are doing and they are offering this as a consultancy, and there is all the overhead that they need to account for. But I think that another element that I see my clients are keen on is actually the fact that they can control results and they can reuse results and they can deep dive into results whenever they want. When you work with an agency, unless you pay really tons and tons of money, we know that any consultancy piece is limited in time. So the consultancy agency will dive into your brand, will dive into your spend, will dive into your channels, and will give you like the best of its class when it comes to results, recommendation, and insight, and how you can take that measurement and improve your budget allocation going forward. However, because they are agencies, they need to move to other businesses. So at a certain point, that project is called to an end and the agency will move on to another project. In the meantime, the brand challenges do not stop. The requests from the business do not stop. And frequently, the teams that have commissioned these type of studies find themselves in situations where they still need more granular results when the contract has ended or when the update has ended. So I think one of the key factors that is pushing companies to in-house is actually to have more control of these results and to be capable to respond quickly to whatever changes that are happening in the market that is unfortunately too costly to do if you wanted to do it through the agency on a recurrent basis.
Yes, of course, having more control or being more adaptable are certainly key benefits. From the other side, one could say that there is a difficulty attaining highly trained personnel that are capable of running marketing mix modeling projects in-house within the advertisers themselves. And some advertisers might say that they cannot replace the service provided by their agencies for that reason specifically. Do you think that it is possible to reach that level of insight and details within the company itself in a cost-effective manner?
Yeah, I think what you have mentioned when it comes to the possibility of benefiting from a larger experience that comes obviously from the agency is to innovate. However, I think that this is first short term, and second, there are other ways to circumvent that. So obviously, we know that when you are a brand, you do not specifically have a team in place to run analytics. However, what we are seeing recently is that brands are more and more investing in creating these teams. Of course, in the beginning, this team won't have the enough MMM acumen to be capable of delivering results that are mirroring what is happening or what they are used to from the external agencies. However, I think there is a start for everything. The same thing if you are an agency and you hire a new consultant, that person could be very talented when it comes to econometrics, to math, to statistics, but obviously this person won't have any background about MMM, and you need to teach and you need to make that person learn the different steps that are involved in any MMM project. Same for the brands. It's something that needs to be part of your strategy. It's something that you need to be thinking about all the steps that are involved in the process and take them one by one. So obviously getting the right team in place is the first step. And then after that, you need to create what we call at Mass Analytics, a knowledge transfer program, in the sense that there are certain elements of that transfer that would be given the clients so team becomes much more proficient in MMM. And also don't forget here is that when you work with a technology partner, at least when we look at the example of Mass Analytics, we offer extensive support. We offer extensive knowledge on MMM because ourselves, we have run multiple MMM projects, and then you can replace that kind of knowledge that you used to have from the managed consultancy agency by the knowledge we have, and you can use that technology partner as a sounding board when it comes to checking your equation, reviewing your data processing, helping you creating the pipelines for the data preparation and setting up the optimization in order to create the insight that is required for the business.
That certainly does make a lot of sense. So in a way, the way I see it right now after what you said is basically the technology partner are going to be a solution to try to tackle the obstacle of that learning curve. So a technology partner can more or less ease the transition from relying on an agency to in-housing market and mix modeling.
Yes, absolutely. And I think now it's really rare that you find a technology partner, be it in MMM or in any other field, that doesn't offer support and consultancy. And there are statistics actually about the successful ingestion and the successful implementation of the software within a company, and that part of that success is really attributable back to the fact that actually there is support, there is consultancy that makes the transition easy, as you've mentioned, and makes the team on board the software and all its elements and modules.
Yeah, thank you. How about the knowledge sharing or the knowledge transfer program you talked about? Could you tell us a little bit about how Mass Analytics tackled that field specifically?
So what we have done is that we have created like different steps or different forms of training. These forms could be cumulative in the sense that you can start by one and then accumulate the other one and then accumulate the other one. So starting by the online training platform, which is an online course composed of 10 modules. In each module, we tackle one step of the marketing mix modeling process, because actually when you deliver a marketing mix modeling project, there are a certain number of steps that you need to observe in order to be capable to successfully deliver your project. And that starts from the kickoff meeting to the data prep, to the data understanding, all the way to the data processing, then data modeling, and then optimization, evaluation of models, and insight and recommendation. So what we did in that course is that we have covered in details every single step of that process, given our clients tips and given them material, and that could be used in order for them to apply these tips and use that material in order to start their MMM journey. Obviously, in any online course, you should have evaluations. So we have quizzes and we have a certification that would be granted at the end of the course when the person has completed all the courses and took the comprehensive, I would say, exam at the end, where they could be certified as an MMM and master expert. So once actually the OTP has been done and dusted, and then the candidate or the person that we are transferring knowledge to has been certified, and then we offer a really wide range of consultancy services in order to make sure that the in-house teams are more than capable of delivering their project up to the same standards as the ones that they are used to from the external agencies. And here I would like to highlight that this consultancy is articulated around three main areas. So there's the pre-modeling consultancy. There's then the modeling consultancy itself, so the modeling stage itself, and then there is also the post-modeling consultancy that is also very, very important to consider. What I mean by pre-modeling consultancy, things like support when it comes to data check-in and validation support, advisory on the best project settings. So depending on the brand, the products, the industry that you are modeling, there is a certain way that you need to follow in order to structure your MMM project. And this is where we step in order to help. We also provide a hands-on consultancy during the data preparation. Sometimes we prescribe in a way the way to transform the variables, or sometimes the client will hand over to us this task and ask us to create the different pipelines or processors that are necessary in order to complete the data preparation, which we know is one of the most difficult parts of any MMM project. But again, thanks to the technology that we own, thanks to which is called actually mass feed, we are capable really to automate that step. Now, once this is done and once we have data sorted that is ready for modeling, the next step is really important. We generally call it at Mass Analytics data processing. What we mean by data processing is actually creating additional variables that mimic the way your customers have responded to the different marketing activities. And here I'm talking about all the carryover transformation, time latency effect, saturation, synergy, wear out, short and long-term effect of advertising, lagging promotions, for example, if you have a promotion variable. And here again, where we intervene is that we help the in-house teams better understand what processor should be applied to which variable, based on our expertise and based on the sector of activity and the brands that are being modeled. So this is what I call the consultancy that happens pre-modeling. Then we have the modeling consultancy, and here we are really at the modeling stage. We are really building the models and creating like the foundations for the insight and recommendation. And here we advise them on the best modeling techniques to use. Because again, econometrics or MMM is not based on one single technique. We have different techniques that we can use, ranging from simple regression to log linear, to nested modeling, to pooled regression, a random and fixed effect. So which one is the most suitable technique for the business problem that I have at hand? In our technology, we use genetic algorithm powered by AI in order to look for the best combination of all the variables that have been created. And again, we provide support on how we can fine-tune this engine and make sure that we get sound models out of that. We help them also extract modeling results. Generally, what happens is that when you model your data, it's 3 years worth of data. However, when you present your results back to the internal teams, it's very important that you focus on the main areas of interest that they have expressed. And that would probably necessitate that you will be pulling out subsections of your data rather than your full data. And again, one other area of consultancy here is that we help them converge to the good model, evaluating with them all the model validation statistics to make sure that whatever model we have for the subsequent phases is both commercially and technically sound. Now, the last part of the consultancy is the post-modeling. And here it's about really getting the right insight, the right recommendation out of the output, because there is a difference between having a sound model, but then it's another kettle of fish to try to get insight and recommendation from that model. For example, what should I do next year in order to improve my performance? If I have a constraint on certain media channels, what would be the best scenario that I should be going for? And how we can really leverage all the ROI or the diminishing return curves that have been created and be capable of using this to respond to the questions that the teams are facing from the business. And that would be really the consultancy part that we will cover as part of that knowledge transfer program. Obviously, everything that I have mentioned is documented, so the client would be left with documents that document all that, plus of course all the calls and all the intervention from our teams to make this really happen on the ground.
Ramla, thank you for the detailed explanation. That does make a lot of sense, especially in when the learning curve in a sense is steep. These kind of services could really serve to easily introduce to an in-house team and help them more or less get the hang of how to use market and mix modeling in a comfortable setting. Now let's shift the conversation to data in a sense. What level of granularity are the data inputs available when in-house and MMM versus resorting to rely on an external agency? In other words, are there any advantages from a data perspective to in-housing MMM?
I don't think that the advantages are related to the granularity of data as much as it is related to the data confidentiality and the data sharing exercise. So I would say that in terms of data granularity, what you get as when you work as a managed consultancy, or if you do it in-house, is the same, because obviously even if you work with an external agency, it is in your interest to send to that agency all the data you have so you can get the most detailed results possible. However, I would say that the concern that I have seen recently from my clients is that because of the strictness or the increased strictness of the data confidentiality, the data sharing, and also data providers contract that sometimes prevents you from sharing the data that they are given to the brands with the external agencies. That really makes it more difficult on the brands to get approval to send data or to share data and all the responsibility that comes behind all that. So I think that the peace of mind that the brands will gain when it comes to doing it in-house as opposed to external agency is that they won't have to go through all the hurdle of contracting and sourcing and protecting the data that is being shared with the partner.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Okay, let's talk about a hypothetical scenario. Say you're a mid-level manager who's trying to convince their superiors of in-housing. How would you more or less introduce the idea to your superior, or what kind of noticeable return on investment can you try to pitch in a sense?
That's very interesting, and I think you said it clearly. It's all about an ROI calculation exercise. So you need to support that team in order to defend that case in front of whoever is signing the budget or whoever is taking the decision to in-house. And here you need to weigh the options and the costs that a managed consultancy service will cost you, actually, in terms of time and in terms of money, because time is also important. Because, even if you work at an external agency, there is time that needs to be deployed by the teams to create to collect the data, to sometimes put that data into templates and to tweak with them some of the hypotheses halfway through, and then embrace the final presentation, embrace the results, and disseminate it internally. So again, even if you are working with an external agency, there is also a lot of time that would need to be put in from the internal team, and that needs to be counted in when you do your cost evaluation of the two options. So I think, yes, I would say that in what I have seen, it's a matter of building a case. Obviously, two elements of that. There is the strategic part of it. So what do we gain if we're in-house? What control will we have over our results? What autonomy will we have? What more things we will be able to do when we're in-house? And obviously, the second part should be cost-related, because it would be very difficult to defend an option that is much more expensive than relying on an external agency. And I think that also in that business case, you need to leverage or probably precise more how would you go about not getting the expertise from the external agency. And here, one of the tips that I can give you is that if you use a technology partner, you could easily replace that expertise if obviously the technology partner is willing to share with you that expertise, to give you benchmarks when it comes to your vertical ROI, to your vertical budget allocation, and so forth.
That does make a lot of sense, Ramla. Let's conclude with the scalability of in-house MMM in general. Will be able to expand and flexibly accommodate new products and media mixes, or would that require, let's say, substantially higher investments from the company that's seeking to in-house?
So I think the keyword actually is automation, and we know that we cannot achieve automation if we don't have a powerful technology. So I think that if you are really serious as a brand to in-house, there are three components that you need to think of. First is the team, second is the technology, third is the consultancy and support and the knowledge transfer that you would need to have from your technology provider in order to make it happen in-house. So if these three elements are not set in place, it will be very difficult to do the in-house thing. So a software without consultancy and support wouldn't last for long, because the internal teams will get frustrated. They do not have the necessary support to understand the different modules. They do not have the necessary support or knowledge yet to apply to MMM. If you have the knowledge but you not have the technology, it will take you ages to do it in-house or to create your own tools. Plus, it will be really prone to human error. And of course, if you do not have the team that will make it all happen, that won't be able to move forward. So I would really say that these three components need to be in the roadmap of any brand that wants to in-house. I am not really worried about whether the brand will get there or not eventually, because I'm 100% sure that they will get there. And we've tried in the past with big advertisers, and they managed with a team that is talented. But obviously, at the time when we intervened with them, they did not have any clue about MMM. They just had a good team in place. And what we made sure of is that we took this team step by step over the whole process until they become proficient in what they are doing. So I think this, again, that are the three things that I would emphasize on. And again, I would say that that in-housing versus agency-led should be thought of when it comes to the three components. If the three components are there, I think you can in-house. If one of them is not there, so I think it's probably you can do a hybrid system where for some brands, for some markets, you can work with the in-house, and with the other brands, you can work with the agency until you feel more and more comfortable taking more and more models on board in-house.
That last one does seem like a good solution to more or less ease into the process of in-house and MMM and to assess it without really leveraging a lot of resources into the matter. I see that we don't have a lot of time left. Ramla, I just wanted to thank you for your time and all the answers that you gave us. The floor of yours, if you want to give any concluding remarks.
Thank you for this opportunity. Again, I tried to be as objective and possible and really mirror what I am hearing from my clients that are scattered all over the world when it comes to the discussion we had, the interesting discussion we had about in-housing and versus agency-led. Again, I emphasize that we are not here saying that you need to in-house. We just try to explain the laying foundations for the in-housing, and a lot of brands still using the hybrid system. And again, as your confidence increases, as your team becomes more proficient, that's how you can take more and more on board.
Thank you very much, Ramla. This has been Dr. Ramla Jarrar, Chief Executive Officer of Mass Analytics. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.